Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight. So I have Maddie and Landon here with me, and we are so sorry that we can't all be together, but we wanted to come to you through Facebook and just give you a short devotion tonight. I hope that you've all had a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we can't wait to see you guys very soon. So this week, actually at Christmas, Miss Lisa from church gave me this devotional. And so when I was asked to bring the devotion tonight, the Lord just brought me to one of these devotions called God is Faithful. And so I just want to give you guys some hope and just a reminder that God is always faithful. He's sovereign. He loves each and every one of us. And He cares deeply for us. And He cares about what's going on in our life. But He's given us some promises and some hope. And so I want us to go back to Genesis chapter 17, verse number 16. And in this example from Genesis, God had told Abraham that he and Sarah would become parents, that they were going to have a son, even though they were very old. And so Landon here is going to read Genesis 17, verse 16 to us.
And I will bless her and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her.
So this is where God is promising that He is going to make Sarah a mother. And after God does this, Abraham does what many of us do when God asks us to do something. He laughed. So Landon's going to read verse 17.
Then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed, and said in his heart, Shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear?
So Abraham was 100 years old, and Sarah was 90 years old. And here God is promising them a child. But Abraham wasn't the only one that was laughing. Maddie, will you read Genesis chapter 18, verses 13 and 14?
And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son.
So not only did Abraham laugh, but Sarah laughed as well when God promised them a son in their old age. Now listen, we shouldn't think that we are so much better than Abraham and Sarah, because when God tells us to do something, especially sometimes when it doesn't make sense to us, we probably laugh too, or we want to stray away from it. But we know that God is faithful. And if we keep on reading in Genesis chapter 21, God gives Sarah and Abraham that son that they had promised him. So things didn't turn out exactly the way Abraham and Sarah had thought that they would in their life. Of course, they wanted children, but they probably weren't expecting that they were going to have those children at such an old age. And so for each of us, I know for Maddie and Landon over the last year, things probably haven't turned out the way that you guys would have wanted them to. You probably weren't expecting to go to online school. Landon, you probably were not expecting to have to cancel your baseball season. Those were some things that were probably disappointing to both of them. But some good things actually came out of it, because God is faithful, and He just doesn't pull the rug out from under us and expect us just to flounder around. He loves us. He's a good Father, and He cares for us. And so some good things came out of it, right? So what are some things, Landon, that we did in the last year that maybe we wouldn't have normally have done through some of the difficulties that our world was facing?
Go to the beach.
Yeah, we had some really cool trips that we went on. We picked up hiking, and that was something that we had never done before. So even though things probably weren't exactly the way we would have planned it, we still saw God working in our lives. God comes through for us, and it may not always be in the way that we expect, but we can trust God. He cares for us, and in every situation that you may be facing in your life, God cares for you, and He wants what's best for you. It just may not always always come in the way that we would probably plan it out ourselves or even expect. But that's okay, because a lot of times it even turns out better. So what I want you guys to do is to think about, how has God been faithful to you? Just as he made this promise to Abraham and Sarah that they would have a son, he was faithful to them. And they did have a son. Abraham became the father of nations through that son, because God is sovereign, because God keeps his promises. And so, Maddie, I want you to think back over the last 365 days. How are some ways that God has been faithful to us, even though we've been facing some difficult circumstances?
Well, he has protected us, and we have been really healthy. And we just, our family has gotten to spend lots of quality time together. And, he has met a lot of my needs. There's always food on the table, there's always clothes on my back, and there's always a roof over my head. And, God has just been really faithful to me through the past year.
That is great. I know that we could always look back on our life, and even though some bad things may happen, we can always find some good in that and know that God is taking care of us and that he's working every situation for our good. So I want to encourage all of you to, over the next week before we meet again, to spend some time in prayer asking God to help you, to believe that just as he was faithful before, he will be faithful again. And so just like Maddie wrote down and gave us some ways that God has been faithful to our family, why don't you think of some ways that God has been faithful to your family? Even though maybe you haven't been able to go to school like you wanted to, or maybe some sporting events have gotten canceled, you can still look at your circumstances and see that God has been faithful to you, just as we've been able to see today that Maddie shared with us. So we love you guys. We hope that y'all have a good night, and we can't wait to see you again very soon. Bye.